presence I've ever felt before. We need to leave.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2022 horror thriller with a little bit of science fiction thrown in there for good measure, The Last Possession, a film that is directed by Dan Riddle and it stars Stephen Brody, Cassie Shea Watson, Tom Proctor and Patricia Ray. Now the film focuses on a young family, husband, wife and two young children who move into the late father's house. The husband's grandfather has passed away. He didn't get on with his son. He was quite violent, bit of a drunk. His son isn't particularly happy about moving into this house, but they don't really have a choice. Once they get moved into this house, some strange events start happening. There's something happens out in the backyard as a hole develops. They can't explain it, and things continue to escalate within the house until the mum and the two young children are convinced that they're being haunted. But the dad, who is a scientist, won't have any of it and holds out. Right, what are my thoughts on The Last Possession? Well, there are two ways to look at this film, really. Yes, it's a low-budget film, certainly, but I've seen, the production values here for this film are actually pretty decent. And I do think there's two ways of looking at this film. There's one way where you can look at it and think, right, okay, well, this is like a haunted house type film that we've kind of seen done before and done better. And then there's another aspect of this film where it delivers, in a sense of it kind of does everything it says on the tin. It does everything you would expect like a haunted house type film to do. You've got the young family moving into the house. You've got things escalating, things happening until there's a realization amongst the whole family that things just aren't right. You've even got the cliche of like the local grandmother coming in to clean the house, all this kind of stuff. So it opens up the book and it ticks a lot of these boxes. It's not massively original. But there's another side as well to this film where you dig a little bit deeper and it actually does take a few risks with the genre, which is where the science fiction element comes into it. And I'm not going to spoil any of that. For those of you who've seen the found footage film that I reviewed fairly recently on the channel, I think it was a 2015 found footage film called Encounter. It was actually one of those DVDs or Blu-rays, I think, that Leo sent me over at Christmas time. Leo from Geek Legion of Doom sent me over. A similar plot line to that in a lot of ways. Not exactly the same, and obviously this isn't found footage either. But they share a similar tone, I suppose, in regards to the film. But I've got to be honest, I was engaged throughout the whole of this film. I thought the performances here were all exactly what you would expect. There was nobody that stood out as being a poor performance. Even the children, the two young children, I think did a pretty decent job in regards to their acting. So I thought everybody here delivered. There's nobody that stands out as a poor performance, so that helped my immersion into the film. The special effects, while don't stand out as being anything spectacular, you'll get the usual, doors slamming, things sliding about, baseball bats flying out of people's hands, all this kind of stuff, people levitating, all that kind of stuff. And later on, you get some other bits and pieces in regards to special effects. And again, I don't want to spoil that. But again, with it, even though it's low budget, it felt decent quality to me. All the effects, it felt believable. And again, it helped my immersion into the film. So ultimately, what we kind of get here is a pretty disposable, like haunted house type movie that actually dips its toes into a few different genres. You've got your haunted house thing, you've got the possession thing, you've got the sci-fi thing going on. You've got all this kind of stuff going on, and I think it does a pretty decent job of doing it. There are aspects of the film that don't work. The fact that the guy works at a scientist, it doesn't really explore that. I mean, he's constantly pushing back against this, these claims that the house is haunted and this kind of stuff. He's always pushing back with these scientific, saying it's, there's always an explanation sort of thing. But it never really fully explains what kind of scientist he is, what kind of scientist he does, and it seems very convenient that one of his work colleagues, his grandma, is someone that deals with these issues, in regards to being sensitive, and has dealt with these sort of things before. It just felt a little bit forced, that, the fact that they needed to get this into the film somehow, and it just didn't seem to fit that, this scientist that he worked with, his grandma, was the one to do it. So I think when it moved beyond like the immediate family sort of thing, that's when it struggled a little bit. But I also liked how they incorporated, the grandfather. We are told in no uncertain terms at the beginning of the film, this grandfather who was passed was, not very nice, and the son did definitely not get on with him, and there was a real issue between the two of them. And how they sewed this into the story in regards to, is it the grandfather that's haunting them because he's nasty and evil? Is it something else? And it does kind of keep you wondering and guessing for the majority of the film until the reveal takes place. And I thought they tied that storyline up pretty well. So I'm going to give this a generous 6 out of 10. Only because I quite enjoyed it. It is not going to win any awards for originality. But in regards to a low-budget film, the quality for me is all there. And I was pretty interested and engaged. So, I mean, sometimes you can watch one of these horror films, and you can watch it and you just think, it's a real chore to watch, and it's overly convoluted and complicated in regards to the plot and things like that. And it's like, they get very, very tiresome. You just want, sometimes, a bog-standard, basic, scary movie that kind of ticks all the boxes. And for me, this one does it. So if that's the kind of horror film you're looking for, you could do far worse than this one. So check out The Last Possession. It's not an awful film at all. There's actually some pretty good things going on in it. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the review, and I'll be back with plenty more reviews and content on the channel very, very soon.